Hello and welcome to the CX Files for February 8th, 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
I'm Peter Ryan, coming to you live from Montreal, Quebec. Mark, great to see you. And we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel here in Canada. We're actually at the point now where the days are getting notably longer, and with any luck, the snow will not be around much more.
Well, we don't have that problem. I don't think I've ever seen any snow in Brazil. In fact, in all the time I've been here, I've only seen frost once. So it never gets that cold.
I might have been with you. I remember coming down to Sao Paulo several years ago. It was the middle of July, and I was not anticipating for it to be as cold as it actually was. And memory serves correctly, you took me to a department store so I could buy a relatively warm jacket.
Yeah. Well, it gets a bit chilly in the winter, but it's all relative because it can still be in the low 20s in the middle of winter during the daytime, but it will get a bit chilly at night. Whereas this morning I said to my wife, "Oh, it's just 28 today," and she said, "Yeah, it is already feeling a bit chilly."
Oh, don't start. I'll never forget. That reminded me of something. Back when I was living in Ireland, back in the early 2000s, I took a quarterly trip. I would do it every 3 months to go to France. And Ryanair was really good that way. And I remember walking around Paris towards the end of January, and it was so warm. I had nothing more than a sweater on, and it got so hot by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, walking around La Défense, and I took my sweater off and tied it around my waist. And I thought to myself, this is January. This is France. This is not right. But look, going back to what you were saying about not seeing snow in Brazil, the way the climate's changing, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Of course, it does happen in Brazil, but it's right down in the south. So it's further south from here,
As
which
you would
is also,
imagine.
which is also where they make all the wine as well.
Oh, that sounds like a great excursion to come out on.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we talk about the guests this week? We're talking with Mike
Great.
Harfield. Mike is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at Sigma Connected, based over in the UK. Now, I think that you've had experience of Sigma
Yeah.
Connected before. You know these guys. I've certainly been talking to them for some time, and what I think is very different with them is that they have a really practical focus on ESG and, in particular, impact sourcing. I think that what sort of sets them apart from a lot of companies in the industry is that they don't just talk about impact sourcing as a checkbox exercise. They really think about the career and the opportunities that they're giving to all of their employees, and I think that this is really interesting. I mean, I think a good example is, and you'll hear this during the interview, is I sort of asked Mike about the difference between impact sourcing in the UK and in South Africa, and how in the UK, quite often we've seen contact center jobs or agent jobs as, summer jobs or temporary jobs. It's not often been seen in the UK as an aspirational position. And he almost seemed to be offended by that, to even talk about it, because, he was basically responding and saying, well, look, that may be what you think, but you take a look at the agents in our facility and you take a look at the time we take to help develop their career, give them training, give them options for the future. And these are not just like summertime jobs. This is a step on a proper career ladder. So I think that what we're talking about is really practical kind of ESG here.
Yeah, practical ESG, and I think practicality is the key word that we're looking for. Mark, I've said this for quite some time. ESG is only going to work if the outcomes of these policies are going to drive strong results for the client. And, impact sourcing is a case in point in that. If you're going to be deploying an impact sourcing strategy, you've got to make sure that the outcome that's delivered by that impact sourcing based agent is going to be just as good, if not better, than what would be for just perhaps a conventional agent. And, I've talked to a lot of the providers about this, and they agree. it's nice to have this, but if it's not going to result in a commercial outcome that's going to be successful, or that's going to be even better than if you were deploying an agent that was recruited through regular means, it's just not going to work. The reality is many of the buying community using this system, using impact sourcing, are doing it because the outcomes are so good. But that's got to be maintained. And from the standpoint of more organizations procuring with an ESG basis to the procurement process, the outcomes are going to need to be maintained to be solid. The agents that are being recruited and being onboarded have to make, there's got to be an emphasis around the quality as well as the social impact for this to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, at the end of the day, this is what Sigma Connected is doing. They're saying that if we want to provide a great customer experience, the agents need to be engaged, they need to be on board, they need to actually care about what they're doing when they come into work in the morning. And I think that we've seen this, we've been around the industry long enough to see that if you invest in the people, then you will actually see that on the front line. I think that what we're talking about here is just a very practical example of that. That they're sort of saying that we have to move on from this mentality that these jobs are not aspirational, because these jobs are basically a key towards moving on into marketing, into sales, into human resources. There's almost any corporate job you can move into if you have this kind of great experience and training that you can get when you're sort of working directly with customers.
Agreed. And the challenge then is, and I think this is where Sigma's gone a long way, is actually giving a conduit to individuals who might come from less fortunate backgrounds or more marginalized backgrounds to be able to fall into these types of jobs that then become careers for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we go straight to the interview with Mike Harfield and hear about impact sourcing and ESG and how it really can work in markets such as South Africa and the UK.
Perfect.
Mike, it's great to get you on the podcast. Now, this is a global podcast. You're based in the UK. So probably the first thing is if you could just introduce us to Sigma Connected, just so that, we've got an idea where you fit into the CX ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Mark. And first of all, many thanks for inviting me on. So Sigma Connected, we are 12 years old. We're a BPO. We are actually South African owned, but the business was founded by myself and Gary Gilbert, both UK based. Predominantly, we service UK client base. We are now approximately 2/3 in South Africa, a third in the UK for that servicing. That's seen a fairly material shift post-COVID. I'd say that was probably inverted pre-COVID, and we're seeing that direction of travel very much continue for obvious reasons, with labour market challenges in the UK and cost pressures around the world. In terms of what we do, we're not all things to all people. We specialise in complex interactions. So we have a vision of flawless basics for complex interactions, and a philosophy that we've developed over the period, that our business is driven very bottom up, by which I mean the business is built for the people. It's not built specifically to drive value to shareholders or to the exec. It has a different philosophy. The philosophy is that if we look after our people, if we build an amazing place for our people, we develop quality careers for our people, all of the other good stuff will ripple upward through the business. And that's something we hold ourselves very, very honest to on a, I hope, minutely basis.
Yeah, and that's actually a nice segue, because that's really where I wanted to sort of focus the conversation. Because I've seen you online talking about careers, developing people, building genuine kind of careers coming out of contact centers, and impact sourcing as well, which is something we hear about quite often. John Yarlett recently launched his own alliance, that focuses on promoting the idea of impact sourcing. And I think it was LinkedIn, but I saw you writing something about impact sourcing and saying there should be more systemic change. It seems as if a lot of the initiatives that we see at the moment are kind of tinkering around the edges. What do you think that should change then?
Sure, I should be really explicit that I don't mean to label all other impact sourcing as poor and ours as the only pedigree amongst them. It's far from that. There's a lot of amazing initiatives out there, but I guess my principal concern is that it can be, done badly. Impact sourcing can be patronising. It could be borderline abusive or token. There's good impact sourcing and there's bad impact sourcing. There's good offshoring and bad offshoring, right? There's a responsibility. The principle behind a lot of the sourcing that we do is we're bringing people in from disadvantaged areas, they're disadvantaged youth, and they could very easily be set up to fail. If there's an element of that impact sourcing that's motivated by cost cutting, by access to lower cost labor, or worse still, in my opinion, a CSR box tick, I think that's really irresponsible. I think that the responsibility that we have, and frankly the privilege that we have, is that we can make a genuine difference in our industry, not just in our business, but in our industry. We have a huge gift to go and make a real difference, and if we approach that with the right methodology, we can create a virtuous circle that drives huge value for individuals, for groups, for communities, for our business, for our clients, customers, and for our shareholder alike. And done right, it's the most amazing thing. Done wrong, it can be cynical and unpleasant, in my view.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, because I think that we quite often see this as the kind of savior mentality. It's going into the townships and giving someone a job, and I guess that you could actually say that there are disadvantaged young people all over the world. So I mean, I guess for you guys, you've also got a UK operation. So do you explore what you can also do in the UK as well as South Africa?
Yeah. I mean, our principal mindset here is impact sourcing isn't a South African challenge. It's a very easy to articulate challenge in South Africa or in a number of third world locations around the globe, and people are very quick to be dismissive of it in the UK. But I would suggest that an increasing majority of our own and many BPOs recruitment in the UK is impact sourcing. But by its nature, it's bringing people into work who have found it difficult to get into the workplace. We're really mindful that you don't add much value in any country by taking an individual from a job in place A and putting them in a very comparable job in place B. There's no value added there. There's wage inflation driven. There's maybe a career progression of some sort for that individual, but probably not. It's probably just, I'll take your staff, you take my staff, and no value's added. So we're really mindful that to add value as a BPO, you should be bringing people into the workforce. And frankly, it doesn't really matter what country you're doing that. So in the UK, there are long-term unemployed people. There are areas where that's difficult. And actually, COVID's made it an awful lot easier for us to reach into those areas, because we're deploying nationwide work from home workforce in the UK. Actually, people don't have to live within 10, 15 miles of one of our offices. They can live anywhere where there's internet connection. We can bring those guys into the workforce. And we've as many partner organizations that we work with in the UK to deploy impact sourcing as we do in South Africa or anywhere else we might look. It's just a slightly harder thing to imagine. I think where South Africa's clear and obvious challenge is youth unemployment, mental health and neurodivergence in the UK is almost, it's a growing thing that, again, I think we have a responsibility to say, we can do something with that. We bring people into the workplace and we can give them a home and a culture to belong to and support a growing career. And we do an awful lot of that in the UK too.
Yeah, and that career development is interesting as well, because what you're talking about there is not just the value add of giving someone a job, but actually giving them a step onto a longer term career. And so how do we get away from the kind of popular idea that a job in customer service is, temporary or low value? I mean, customer service is often the kind of butt of stand-up comics and jokes. And it's not seen as a place where you develop yourself into a kind of long-term career that's going to last a lifetime. So how do we sort of move on as an industry from that?
I think I start by being irritated by that perception, because it's just flat wrong. I mean, the ask of an individual in a CX role now is enormous. I suspect most people of my age are hugely thankful to have gone through already and not have to. The job we expect of people on phones or on digital these days is it's an emotionally draining, high EQ, huge requirement for empathy, complex, multi-system, multi-language piece of work. It's a really challenging thing, and when done right, that is the foundation of hundreds of careers. And I think for us to actually kind of develop people, we have to be authentic. We have to mean it. We have to have our guys come in, work as an agent, work as an advisor, and actually tangibly show that development. And due to the flat nature of most of these businesses, it is difficult to say everybody's going to get a promotion. Everyone's going to be on the board within 2 years. Of course, they're not, but everybody can be on a journey. Kind of the pledge that we try to make to ourselves and to our staff is that if you're with us for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, you should either progress within our business or have improved your situation and your CV so you can develop in a direction you want. If that's somewhere else, then great, good for you. But you should leave us better than you joined us. And I think that's something that's completely achievable and demonstrable.
Yeah. And do you think then that the kind of technology that we're seeing being released into the industry at the moment, I mean, especially stuff like artificial intelligence, we're seeing a great deal of automation that's removing, lots of repetitive kind of mundane parts of the job. I mean, it's also, I think, increasingly taking away more of the basic customer interactions. So is that going to lead to the agents becoming, higher up the value chain, more like advisors and troubleshooters rather than, answering the same question over and over?
I mean, I think it inevitably it must do so, right? There must be a range of repetitive, simple transactional tasks that AI already is defeating. IVRs were defeating many of those decades ago. There's a chain through which the technology has to climb. We sit probably quite far up that chain in terms of, we're not doing massive scale transactional servicing. So I think we're probably slightly removed from the immediate creep of AI towards the removal of human interaction. And when we look at a huge percentage of what we do, we find it very hard to imagine technology empathizing with a customer who's having difficulty paying their energy bill, or who has a particular vulnerability, or finds themselves with debt difficulty. These things feel to us at this point in time very, very far away from being solved by technology. And to your point, absolutely drive a requirement for an individual who has the emotional capability to have difficult conversations and but they're actually those difficult conversations are also an opportunity to do some real good, and that's a massively I guess beneficial element of the job. If done right, being an advisor in these difficult conversations is actually a fantastic role. You get to do a lot of good and go home with a smile on your face, and we see that increasingly in these difficult times.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like actually your team is already at that higher end. They're basically troubleshooters. Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I mean, I think that is what we do. We don't hold ourselves out as a business that deploys huge tech or drives enormous digital shift. We can do that, and we partner with people to do that. But the thing that I hope people come to us for is more at that troubleshooting end. I want a flawless basics and advisors talking to my customers who care. And they only care if the business around them really, really cares about them. Kind of, it's a simple, perhaps not particularly sexy philosophy, but it's something that we think really does have a place, and we're able to kind of make our mark doing that.
Yeah. I just wanted to skip back on the idea of career development, because we were just talking about it a moment ago, and I was just thinking, actually, is this more a question of culture within your business? In that, you were saying about how either you're going to develop within our business or you're going to develop the skills to let you go on and do something else. It sounds much more like a kind of philosophy within the business rather than HR has got a plan and they're ticking a box.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it's come across that way, because I would hope that if you asked anybody in our business, that's precisely the answer they would give you. It is a philosophy in our business that your responsibility is to develop the individual that you come into contact with and make them better than you. Give them an opportunity, and then let them go do the same, pay it back. And that kind of payback mentality we have found, and I think it's probably something that's easier to bring to life in South Africa than the UK, where there's no sense of entitlement in South Africa, none that I experience anyway. People are desperate to show you, and then to help somebody else to show you again, and to show you again, and again. We talk a lot about virtuous circles in this business, and those virtuous circles are so easy to start off in South Africa, so long as there's authenticity around. Really mean it. Do we really want these guys to be better than us? Are we really okay if they go somewhere else when we've made them better than us? Yeah, we need to be. And if we're not, I don't know, the pack of cards may not be as strong as we wish it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and do you see that affecting the business? I mean, does it create a positive outcome for the end customers? So are you seeing, this employee engagement is resulting in a better customer experience then?
Categorically, yeah. A better everything outcome. So we believe it centrally to our business that if the people in our business are not shown genuine love by our business, how can we possibly expect them to do so to our clients, customers, or to their colleagues if it's inauthentic? We talk about culture being something that exists when nobody's looking. It's dead easy for us all to be shiny and impressive when a client's on site or during an audit or whatever it is. But the real tests are when nobody's looking. Did our team leaders look after our guys out of hours? Did they check in on them over the weekend? And they make sure that those are the things that we really care about. And we know, we don't think, we know that if that's genuinely prevalent through the business, that ripples into how that individual takes that mentality into every conversation with every customer, and it pays back on a repetitive loop. And we're really obsessive with that, and we sort of make no apologies for our answer to almost every question is that.
Yeah.
How did you look after your guys? If you didn't do it right, we'll do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, we hear this quite often from the analysts and the advisors. It's almost like a cliche. Greater employee engagement results in a better customer experience. But I guess in this case, you're kind of saying, we can directly see it. It's like it's right there and visible.
See it, we can touch it, we can feel it, and we do find it frustrating, because you're right, it is a cliche, and I suspect you could get anybody with the same job title as myself from any BPO, and who's not going to say we're there for our people. We know that, we get that. The test for ourselves, it's an internal test. Can we prove to ourselves all of the time that we mean it? If we can prove that we mean it, and that at every level it's being demonstrated, that kind of bottom-up thinking, then we know that our outcomes will be hugely positive, and that's ultimately the test. We are a commercial enterprise, we're not a commune, so the thing has to make sense. So I wouldn't get away with just having a lovely philosophy that was great for everybody and everyone was having a nice time if it didn't drive true commercial benefit. But we're in this very privileged position that we're able to drive commercial benefit through doing the right thing, and it's not because it's great CSR or great. It's just a smart, in our opinion, and it's just a smart thing to do that just happens to be mutually beneficial for everybody. And why wouldn't you?
All right, that's great. So let's just wrap up then with a look forward. We're just at the start of 2024. What have you got coming up? Any exciting plans for the year?
Yeah, loads. So during this year, we've something we're really proud of. We've put the first international contact centre working for a UK energy company into a township in South Africa. So we are working in Mitchell's Plain Township, dialing back into the UK. Now that's something that we trialled with some domestic local work, and we've now moved to international, and we've been just super pleased with how that's performed. That's saving our staff 3 or 4 hours a day in terms of commute. Certainly in Cape Town, there's a slight lunacy to the fact that everybody's bussed in from similar residential areas all the way into a central business district, and then bussed all set way back out. So taking the work to the people is a philosophy that we've long held. We've always been much closer to the majority of the people than certainly the central business district in Cape Town. But this year we sort of said, well, let's really go and put the business in the township, and the early signs that we've had have been nothing but huge. So 24, we expect to do a lot more of that. We expect to see the work being taken to the people, and the benefits that come with that are multifaceted. We're seeing pop-up enterprises developing around our contact centre in the township, and the I'd love to say they were intended consequences, but actually the unintended consequences of what it can drive have really started to hit home with us, that we can make a material difference, not just to our staff or to our staff's kids, but actually to communities. And that brings with it a really exciting challenge and aspiration for next year and beyond to do more of that, not just in Cape Town, but everywhere we work.
All right, that's fantastic. Thanks very much, Mike.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.